And we're back after a busy holiday break. We have some good news, we have some bad news, and like everyone else around this time of year, we have some New Year's resolutions that we want to go over with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Joining per usual is my co-host Jacob Brownson, and we're going to break down everything that happened over the last 2 weeks, from the Teoscar signing to Bueller leaving for Beantown and much, much more. But before we dig into all that, let's thank our sponsor, BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA, you name it, BetOnline has it. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. And Jacob, it's been a little bit since we've discussed any Dodger news. Obviously, with the holidays kind of being thrown in the middle of December, we got New Year's coming up before this episode will drop. But before we get into it, how's your holiday break been treating you?
Awesome, man. Just enjoy being home, being with family, and obviously Christmas and all that. But yeah, it's been fun. Can't wait to get back into it.
Yeah, the holidays are always a great time of year, especially for the baseball offseason, because some teams may be leaving you some gifts, and the Los Angeles Dodgers did leave us a little gift right after Christmas, as a matter of fact, and that was the long-awaited re-signing of Teoscar Hernandez. Obviously, that's been something that you and I have talked back and forth on this show. Every other Dodger media head has talked about it on their show, but clearly it was a move that everybody wanted. Teoscar wanted to happen, the Dodgers wanted it to happen, and after weeks of debate, back and forth, premature news breaking, then you have a little bit of almost like I would say hours before the signing became like reportedly being announced, where we had reports out there that maybe the San Francisco Giants were getting in on the action for Teoscar. But at the end of the day, it's a 3-year, $66 million deal with the fourth-year club option, 15 million club option. However, the Dodgers can void that club option with a $6.5 million buyout. Looking at all the numbers in between here, we can definitely go over the deferred money because that's the Dodgers way. They like to defer the contract. Signing bonuses are a big thing right now. Clearly, all of that is in Teoscar's deal, but on the face value of everything, how excited are you to not only have Teoscar back, but it just seems like this deal is kind of a steal.
Yeah, man, I love it. I think coming into the offseason, a lot of people thought Teoscar Hernandez might get more than 3 years and 66 million. But it seemed like his market never really developed in the way that people might have thought it would have. So I think the Dodgers are getting great value with him at 366. They're not. I know the fourth year was a big debate. Some people thought he might get it, but it kind of became clear that that wasn't going to happen. I saw some report saying that the two big things with Teoscar was getting the third year guaranteed and that third year being with the Dodgers. So I think this is a win for everyone. Teoscar's a great player, a huge right-handed bat in that lineup. It's really good for the Dodgers to bring him back.
Yeah, and then I already started getting into some of the contract details, but to get even more in depth, it's a $23 million in deferred money. He's already getting another 8.5 million deferred from his initial 1 year, $23.5 million contract that he signed last winter. So clearly, Teoscar is going to get paid not only while playing with the Dodgers, but also after he's done playing the Dodgers. The deal is 3 years guaranteed, which is something that we've heard is a big, deal for him because it gets him to 10 years service time. And once you, accumulate 10 years of MLB service, there's a ton of perks involved and all of that. So it's understandable that a veteran like Teoscar Hernandez, who's heading into his age 32 season, would want to get that guaranteed 3-year paid with the Dodgers. I know there was a lot of reports out there earlier on, where the Dodgers were kind of standing pat like a 2-year deal with maybe a third-year club option. But he ends up getting the deal that he wants with an added fourth-year option, which is what I think we'll get into a little bit more about the other teams that were involved, was the cherry on top that made him inevitably come back to Los Angeles. $23 million signing bonus. Dodgers have kind of been throwing that signing bonus out with all their contracts this, off season. I believe Conforto got some thrown into his. Blake Snell obviously had some to his, and now Teoscar is another latest addition of getting paid up front and joining the Dodgers. And in terms of the CBT hit, $22 million AAV. It is a very, very, cheap option, in my opinion, when you have someone like Michael Conforto, who's at $17 million, who's looking to be more of a, you know, platoon or, rotating outfielder out there. So if you can get Teoscar Hernandez, who was an all-star last year, started the all-star game for $22 million, I just think that's a steal. Um, I know you predicted, like 3 years, 72 million would kind of be like your max. Are you shocked that Teo got a little bit less? Because I feel like credit to him and his agent. They see Soto. This is something we've had a conversation about before. We see Soto sign his deal. We imagine that there's going to be a bidding war between, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Red Sox. The Blue Jays started putting their hat in the ring, and then the San Francisco Giants, Philadelphia Phillies were a team that was mentioned in passing. He didn't get the big deal I guess he was looking for money wise. Are you surprised it was 66 million and not like that 70-ish range that you were initially thinking?
Yeah, man, I am surprised. You think about it, there's a pretty competitive market for right-handed bats right now. You have Santander out there, who's a switch hitter, but better as a righty. You had Tyler O'Neill go for a decent amount early. Yeah, I was a little surprised to see 366. I thought his value might even be a little more than that. But you had teams kind of fill holes that might have needed a right-handed bat, like the Yankees. I think if like the Yankees were in on him instead of trading for Bellinger or something like that, maybe his value could have gone up a little more. I think kind of as things played out and as these dominoes started to fall, you could really kind of figure out that it wasn't going to be as high as everyone initially thought. But like going into the offseason, I was thinking 3 years, you're probably getting to 75 at least. I know I did a poll right before the offseason, and I was like, would you rather sign Soto at, I think it was 12,660 or Teoscar at 4,100, and Teoscar at 4,100 swept with like 80% of the votes. So I think a lot of people thought he was going to get more than he did, and I think that's a testament to the job the Dodgers are doing. Still not, they wouldn't have overpaid him. I think they were very firm at their number, and it just turned into a matter of how you're getting to that number with the signing bonus and the deferrals.
Yeah, and like if you ask me entering the off season, especially after witnessing the season that had, witnessing the October he had minus the NLCS, where it seemed like for most of that series he was kind of lost up there at the plate, but kicked it back up during the World Series. Had a home run off of Carlos Rendon in Game 2, had the game tying hit in Game 5. I thought he earned himself way over 70, maybe 80 million. Once I saw Conforto get almost $20 million to be kind of what a lot of people thought at the time was a bench bat. Obviously, now the Dodgers have kind of confirmed that he's going to be more of an everyday guy moving forward next season, similar to that Jason Hayward type role. But I thought after that, I said, well, if he's getting 17 million, Teoscar Hernandez is probably just, having a ball right now, because now he can start demanding a lot more, because he's not just a serviceable everyday guy. When he's on, he's one of the best hitters, right-handed hitters in baseball, especially in the National League. He showed that last year. Set a career high in home runs, career high in RBIs, posted a WRC plus at, I believe, at 134, so 34% above league average. This is a guy that is going to benefit again for multiple years now, batting behind the likes of Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and depending on the lineup construction, maybe Max Muncy or Will Smith, depending on how things look opening day this next season. I think he's going to continue to thrive. I don't know what's the issue for why his market never materialized. It seems like the reports that were out there, the Red Sox, they were interested, but they weren't one of the teams that was going to outbid like other teams. They were never fully involved in the sweepstakes. My ruling, I'm going to ask Rob Bradford about this and anybody else, maybe Robbie High, when I get the chance to talk to him again, be like, what have you heard with the Red Sox? Because my understanding is the Red Sox just, if you have a qualifying offer attached, they're not going to sign you because they like their draft picks because they have a really good farm system and that's what they've built up. Red Sox were never really interested that far. Orioles kind of had some interest, but it seems like for whatever reason, they don't want to spend money anymore. The interesting team was the Mets, and this was reported shortly after. They offered a 2-year deal, fully guaranteed. I guess Steve Cohen says, we're not the Dodgers. We don't want to defer money. We're going to make sure you get this money all up front. They offered him a 2-year deal, and it seems like everybody else around the league who offered Teo deals was around that 2-year range. There was a report out there that the Blue Jays potentially offered him either the same amount of years or more money, and he still opted to go back to Los Angeles. You look at all those teams that showed interest. Are you surprised that Tio still picked the Dodgers to return, or are you surprised about the teams that shown interest? Because it seems like we had the reports at the beginning of the offseason, like, oh, yes, the Red Sox, the Yankees, they're going to be the ones that are going to give the Dodgers fits about this whole thing. But then it ended up kind of being the Mets and a potential reunion with Toronto.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that he would take a lower offer to be a Dodger. I think we all kind of knew that coming into the offseason is there would be more leeway with Los Angeles. I'm kind of surprised the Mets only offered him 2 years. I thought, and 2 years at 22 is crazy. Like if you're getting up to 25, 26, maybe there's an argument, but same AAV, one less year. I don't know. I just associate Steve Cohen with more of a spender. I the Red Sox, like I don't know how you aren't more in on him. If you're the Red Sox, it seems like their strategy has been to like dabble in all these big free agents and then never really bring them in. You find out that they aren't that competitive in the end. Um, I I don't really understand why they weren't more competitive for Teoscar Hernandez. I know it's like been noted that he would like to hit at Fenway, and the Red Sox needed a right-handed power bat, so that did surprise me. But I'm glad he's back in Los Angeles. I'm glad those other teams were, I guess, lowballing him. Sorry, Teoscar, that they lowballed you, but I'm happy about it because again, he's such a big piece and such a contributor for the Dodgers.
And when I look at it with any signing, I don't really care how much they spend because it's, at the end of the day, it's not my money.
I'm
It's the
not counting.
multi-billion-dollar industry, the Guggenheim Group, the Los Angeles Dodgers, have the billionaires spend their money. However, if you look at it, from a baseball sense, analytical standpoint, how the front office, how, money, all that stuff works with the Dodgers and any other team in baseball, you can see some red flags. One, I already mentioned that he was going into his age 32 season. You're signing a guy into his mid 30s when he's already showing some signs of regression. High strikeout rate, that didn't change from returning to Los Angeles. He still doesn't really walk much. He's kind of, when he's on, he's on. He's going to get you home runs, doubles, not that fast, not the best defender in the outfield. That's stuff that doesn't continue to go up over time. I think the Dodgers are comfortable giving him that 3rd year and potential 4th year because, like I said, $22 million for the next 3 seasons, in 20, the next, AAV wise, that is not a lot. In terms of payroll CBT, it's going to be even less than that because of the signing bonus and the deferrals. So clearly the Dodgers feel comfortable giving Teoscar this deal. And I think his contract's going to age well. I don't think it would have aged well if they went to that 80 million number or maybe 90 million number. Then you would say, maybe Andrew Freeman and the Dodgers were kind of, doing too much to bring Teoscar back. And I am, from my understanding, is that they weren't going to go above these numbers. I know Mark Feinsand and Ken Rosenthal even reported like about a week or two ago that Teo's camp wanted around 66 to 72 million dollars for an entire deal, and it looks like he got the very low point of that option. I think he just read the market, realized it wasn't going to materialize, and he just wanted to get that 4th-year option thrown in there because I would imagine the Dodgers would still pick it up unless they're by chance, there's some dramatic drop off in production. I mean, I know they have outfielders coming up through the pipeline, but at this point, I mean, we really don't know what they're going to do with those guys because it seems like right now on the roster, if you're looking at it, and this could be a conversation for another day, there's a lot of outfielders on this team right now to the point where not only did they have to move Mookie Betts out, put him at second base or shortstop, whichever way they kind of go moving forward, but you're gonna have to make some decisions in the next couple years. But I think for the next 3 years, Teoscar Hernandez fits this team pretty perfectly because they needed a right-handed power bat to, supplement behind their left-handed hitters at the top of the lineup. Protection for Max Muncy. I think it's just a good overall move. It's a move that we all wanted to happen, and at the end of the day, I'm glad about this move. Any other closing thoughts on Teoscar, his market, him returning to the Dodgers, anything like that?
Not really. Just it's really good to have him back. I've said it a couple times, but I've also talked about how his contract. There were definitely concerns with a 3-4 year deal, but I agree with you. I think it's a good deal for the Dodgers. I think towards the end of the deal, we're going to be saying the Dodgers made a really good decision by bringing him back because he's the kind of guy that helps you get 1 or 2 more rings in the next 4 years. Like that's he could absolutely contribute to that in a big way. So really good. I'm excited to see him back in a Dodgers uniform.
So before we move on to the next topic, looking at the Dodgers outfield right now, what is your configuration for the outfielders they have? Like they got Teoscar coming back, they got Michael Conforto, they got Andy Pajes, they still have James Outman, Tommy Edman, all these guys. What is your thought process if you're Andrew Freeman? What's your configuration that you're going to say this is going to be my lineup pretty much every day?
If I'm doing it today, I'm going to have Teoscar in right, Edman in center, Conforto in left against righties, and then Pajes in left against lefties. But I think you'll also see Pajes in center against lefties and another platoon bat in left sometimes, whether that be a Kike Hernandez or a Chris Taylor, although I'm not sure Chris Taylor is going to be a Dodger by opening day. But that I think that's kind of Teoscar's always been better in right field, and Conforto is better in left field. And I would imagine he plays pretty much exclusively against righties, but you're going to face 75-80% right-handed starters usually, something along those lines. So he's going to be playing 5 times a week probably. So I think it's worth it to have him and Pajes in left, and then Teoscar in right.
And CJ wrote an article on DodgersBeat.com for anyone that hasn't checked it out, but he brought up a lot of good points in that, re-signing Teoscar Hernandez opens up a lot of doors. It opens up a lot of opportunities and flexibility for the roster. You wouldn't really think that because, the Dodgers already blown past the CBT threshold. They're getting taxed at 110%, anything over like $300 million. So they have to deal with that. Obviously, they have a lot of prospects in the pipeline. They can do some trades. I know Luis Roberts been a big name mentioned around there. Ha-Seong Kim is another guy that's still available in the free agent market. Nolan Arenado is obviously another name right now. I think if they can get another outfielder, say a center fielder, like Luis Robert, kind of batting him in the bottom third of the Dodgers order, I feel like he would have some extra adrenaline, probably would play a healthy season because now he has something to play for. I know Blake Harris brought that trade, scenario up, and it kind of, is starting to grow on me a little bit more. And that opens the doors up. You mentioned Edman in center. The Dodgers mentioned Edman in center. Dude's a Gold Glove winner at second base, and I know Gavin Lux is the talk of X or social media again. Would you pull a trigger for another outfielder to kind of push Edman back to the infield?
Yeah, first of all, there's been a lot of Gavin Lux talk recently. I've kind of stayed quiet because I don't have the most popular opinion among Dodgers fans on Gavin Lux right now. So I've kind of stayed out of it. But yeah, I used to be a lot higher on Luis Robert. I still would be okay with a deal. I think the White Sox are gonna ask for too much, so I don't know that it would ever get done. But Tommy Edman at second base would be awesome. He's a Gold Glove second baseman. He's probably a Gold Glove center fielder in a full season there too. I mean, the dude is just so good wherever he plays. But it would lengthen the lineup a little bit to have an Edman at second and a Robert, someone like that in center. But yeah, I could be on board for it. It's not my ideal scenario, but it's certainly something I can get behind. And I'm not like 100% set on Gavin Lux being the opening day second baseman. I just I don't know that a Robert deal would be the best
Yeah.
necessarily.
It seems like the Dodgers are gonna have some conversations because Lux has already been mentioned in trade talk. I feel like once your name gets brought up, they're gonna try getting any type of deal done for you to see what your market is out there. And I think there are some teams that will take Gavin Lux. He has 2 years left of club control this year and then the following year. So he does have some value there. We saw what he could do, in that brief, second half play. And then another one is Chris Taylor, where a lot of people kind of want to offload his contract. This is something that I talked about last year and the year before that, where I'm like, hey, if the Dodgers can try to get away from this extra, this couple $1 million, maybe they'll probably have to eat some. It's going to help the team out. It's going to help with roster flexibility because while Taylor can play multiple positions, his defense has gone down tremendously and the offense just isn't there anymore. Maybe he needs a change of scenery. I think the Dodgers are going to have to get creative. I think this is a great time in the offseason. Now that they have Teoscar under, wrap, now they can start focusing on the rest of the roster. Another area of concern for me is, trying to solidify that bench. So I think over the next couple weeks before, February comes along and pitchers and catchers report, you're going to see the Dodgers get really involved in those outlier guys. Like, is a reunion with Kike Hernandez next? Like, who are they going to try to offload off this roster? Who are they going to try to bring in to replace some of these guys on the bench and then kind of platoon roles? But that'll be the conversation we're going to see. That's the rumors, all that stuff, especially once the new year happens. You'll start to see a lot more rumors pick up there. But it's going to be an interesting couple days, weeks leading up to February when pitchers and catchers report. But moving on here to the next topic, and this is where it kind of stings a little bit. With the good news, we had the Teoscar signing, but with the bad news, kind of sad, kind of, a lot of mixed feelings about it. I've seen some opinions on it depending on, what type of Dodger fan you are. And that is Walker Buehler opting to sign a 1-year deal with the Boston Red Sox. So clearly, a lot of Dodger fans still wanted Buehler to come back. I kind of read the writing on the walls, especially once we started seeing more and more reports out there. Um, it seemed like with their involvement in Sasaki, which we'll definitely touch on before the end of this episode, it seemed like the Dodgers were ready to move on, and I just wasn't ready to move on. But he does sign a 1-year, $21.5 million deal, the same as the qualifying offer. So clearly, the Red Sox get a guy, a proven postseason hero, coming off not the best season. But Jacob, first thoughts on and your feelings on Buehler no longer wearing Dodger blue?
It sucks, man. I think we all kind of could. I know you and I definitely kind of could see this coming. I think when the qualifying offer wasn't offered, that was kind of what told the story, because it seemed like the Dodgers were doing that so it wouldn't tank his value, which we've come to find out that was the case. I will never have a bad thing to say about Walker Buehler. As a pitcher, as a person, I don't care. He's an A+ human, and he is a dog on the pitcher's mound. I've always respected, even when he sucked, how he would get interviewed after a game and say, "Yeah, I sucked." I think that's something that us as fans appreciate to see from a player. Like, his honesty with the fans was really awesome. It sucks. Walker Buehler was one of my favorite pitchers to ever really wear a Dodgers uniform, because it was like Kershaw was the first ace I was a fan of, and then it was Walker Buehler. I actually saw one of his first outings in Los Angeles. He got lit up in relief against the Rockies. Fun fact, but he kind of uh, that's one of the guys that I've been rooting for years. So it sucks, but he's gonna go succeed. I feel good about his career with the Red Sox, because his fastball's kind of deteriorated. They're known for basically ditching four-seam fastballs and helping guys with that. You look at their rotation, Cutter Crawford doesn't really throw a four-seam. Tanner Hawk doesn't really throw four seam anymore. So I do think Boston's a good place for him, but I'm gonna miss Walker Buehler. I know you are too, and our guy Scott is a big Walker Buehler fan. So thoughts and prayers to Scott right now.
Yeah, I mean, it leading up to it, especially where it seemed like every rumor regarding Bueller just didn't involve the Dodgers at all, except for Dodger fans just wanting to speak it to existence. I mean, as soon as his offseason started, the first team that was rumored was the Atlanta Braves, and we had some Chicago Cubs thrown out there, New York Mets, New York Yankees, and then at the tail end of it, we started hearing some Boston Red Sox things. And I even mentioned to my friends in passing, I said, Bueller just makes so much sense for Boston. I just felt like his character as a player just fits the city, fits the mold. A team that's very desperate to win right now. They haven't really done or accomplished anything since they won the World Series in 2018. And for a city like Boston, almost 10 years now, like we're like removed from that World Series. They're hungry for success. They just saw the Yankees march into the American League. American League's wide open. I've said this to everybody. I've said this on, on my other show, Clubcast, American League's wide open. Anybody in the American League that's not named the Yankees can get in there. Even the Houston Astros, who seem to be like kind of retooling and rebuilding at the same time, I still think they still have a shot at the World Series with the roster that they have. I just don't think there's a dominant team. And after the addition of Bueller, I'm willing to say the Red Sox are the second best team in the American League. You mentioned all the starting pitchers that they already have. Cutter Crawford is another one. They just traded for Garrett Crochet around a week or 2 weeks ago at the winter meetings, and then they add Walker Buehler, who's going to be their oldest starting pitcher, and he's only 30 years old. He's taken a prove it deal. There was a lot of rumors out there that maybe with the way the market was shaping up, he could get a multi-year deal. And that's when I was like, all right, I love Bueller, but I'm only going to give him a 1-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal, maybe a 1-year deal with an option or a mutual option. That way it's beneficial to both the team and the player, because I feel like everybody does need to read his stats in the regular season. They were not pretty. Obviously, the year got better as it went on, and in October, he really turned it on. He became the clutch Bueller that we all know and love. But if you look at his regular season stats, 1-6 record, 5.38 ERA, 5.54 FIP, and a 1.55 WHIP. I mean, I was there for a lot of his starts. I was there, in Philly when he went AWOL. Nobody knew where he was at. Clearly, he even mentioned to David Vassay when they were celebrating the World Series. There was a point in time in this season, Jacob, where I thought the Dodgers were either going to trade or release him, and he must have thought that as well. And due to injury, due to, the Dodgers situation with pitching, he was able to get an opportunity to start the postseason, and he rode with it. And I just feel like it's fitting that he ended up closing out the World Series after the season that he just had. And clearly a team like the Red Sox, who I mentioned earlier, him not having the qualifying offer helped out his market, because he essentially took a 1-year prove it deal for $21 million. And now he's going to test out free agency the next year. Um, I like the deal for him. I think the Dodgers, and you mentioned it earlier, where they didn't offer him the qualifying offer because it was going to help out his market. So they respected him for in that regard. They've done the same with Kershaw in the past as well. But I also think they just didn't offer, and I've let this be known in my writing on DodgersBeat.com. I just feel like they were also scared that he would take it, especially with the deadline being in November. If you asked me in mid-November when free agency started, if he was going to get over $20 million or even over like $15 million, I would have been like, probably not. But he gets a $21 million deal guaranteed for this upcoming season. Then he can also earn an additional, I believe, $2.5 million in incentives, probably innings pitch, something like that. I think he's going to thrive in Boston. I mean, I would have liked to see him return in Dodger blue, but at the end of the day, if you look at the rotation that the Dodgers have on paper right now, there's really not a spot to fit Bueller in there, is there?
No, and you're expecting Bobby Miller to be better. We've kind of touched on Miller. He's a guy I've watched a ton of video on. I completely expect him to bounce back. Hopefully, you have Roki Sasaki, who we'll talk about in a little bit. And you just have a ton of depth. You have Landon Knack. You've got guys coming off injuries with Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin. There's just a ton of options in that rotation. So many that I think you're going to see some of those guys be on a different team by April 1st or whenever the domestic opening day is. I think the Dodgers have an abundance of pitching. The problem is it's not like an abundance of overwhelmingly good pitching. Like, I don't know how much value you're getting out of some of those guys. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the Dodgers navigate that. But yeah, there's just, it wouldn't make sense to give Walker Buehler 21 million when you have a guy like Landon Knack or someone like that who can eat those same innings as a fifth, sixth option in the rotation for a lot cheaper. And there's really just not the space for it. Again, hopefully you have Roki Sasaki in there and some other guys that can really go for you for a cheaper price.
Yeah, and the Dodgers already kind of alluded to a six-man rotation. That seems like that is the plan for this upcoming year, where they're kind of going to attack the league with their pitching depth. I don't think they're going to trade away Gonsolin or May or any of like Landon Knack, Bobby Miller, Emmett Sheehan, any of these guys, because I think at the end of the day, I think the best way to go about this with the starting rotation or just pitching or getting innings, pitched, is to supplement it with minor league pitchers. And then once you get to the latter half of the months, you're praying that Glass now is fully healthy. You're praying Blake Snell's healthy. You're praying all that these other guys are ready to take on October. The Dodgers don't want to get into another situation that they got in this past season. It was a miracle that they kind of made it all work with just three starters. And I would even argue at some points it felt like it was only two starters, because Jack Flaherty on, regular rest or, 4 days rest just wasn't an option. It seemed like he was just a whole different pitcher, gave up a lot more runs, velocity was down. He just seemed fatigued out there. So the Dodgers understand that. They understand the injuries that have happened within their organization and around the league. And even, Brandon Gomes alluded to it. Andrew Freeman alluded to it. Dave Roberts spoke about it. Everybody's asking the Dodgers questions like, hey, what's wrong with the organization? Like, what's wrong with the state of pitching in the game today? And I think the Dodgers' best course of action is just load management. Just like they do in basketball, we're going to bring that term to baseball. They're going to load manage these pitchers. You're going to see the Dodgers use probably, I would say, upwards close to 10 starting pitchers this entire season,
At
depending on
least,
how injuries go. They could probably even go more. You're going to see bullpen games.
I
Walker
think,
Buehler is a guy that would have been beneficial to that group, but at $21 million compared to, Gonsolin, who's making like 2 million, or May, who's making 2 million, or Bobby Miller, who's making league minimum at like $780,000, that's basically gonna win every single time in terms of how the team is built.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the Moneyball meme. You can recreate Walker Buehler in the aggregate with all these guys you have. They can fill that role of what he has. I forgot about Jack Flaherty. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I'm so curious to see what his market's like, what
I
he's
have
gonna
no
do.
clue. I have no clue. Yeah.
That's gonna be interesting because you haven't really heard much about him at all. But yeah, I mean, the Dodgers have so much pitching. They they will be fine without Walker Buehler. It's sad. He's like, he's one of my favorite Dodgers ever. But like, from an organizational standpoint, if you kind of separate fandom from what the actual decision making is, what that's the move that makes sense, is to let Walker Buehler go be great somewhere else.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, so far he finishes his Dodgers tenure with a 47-22 record, 3.27 ERA, 754 strikeouts. He's a two-time World Series champ, and he had that top 5 finish in the NL Cy Young voting in 2021. Seems like everything got derailed after, the 2022 fiasco with his injuries, missed almost a year and a half with his surgeries. Um, I've even stated on X, I feel like the contract extension that went to Glasnow was probably the money that would have went to Bueller if he stayed healthy and showed that promise. And I know there's a lot of red flags for Glasnow, but if you look at Glasnow's, stats, there's a reason why my man is still getting paid as much as he is. They just got to pray that his elbow and his arm last into for over 140, 150 innings and he can pitch in October because that guy's nasty. I'm never going to give up on him, but
I
just
miss
didn't work out in the end.
on the mound. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited for that once, especially once we start leading up to 2025. I miss watching Glass now, and that's going to be a topic of like, how do they make sure he doesn't get hurt again? So I'm interested to see what they do with all of that. But I know you mentioned Bueller was one of your favorite players, especially growing up. And, you and I are around the same age. And when I was in high school, that's when Bueller was drafted, 2015 draft. I was 16 years old. It was a guy I gravitated to right away, especially when I watched college baseball, watched him pitch for Vanderbilt, win the national title there. What's your favorite memory of Bueller? It could be the World Series this past season. It could be 2018 where he had a lot of memories there. When you think of Bueller in Dodger blue, what's the first memory or the best memory that pops up in your head?
I mean, the World Series is always going to be there, but really the 2020 playoffs and him just dropping it there. I kind of hate how you say Bueller, and one of the first things I think of is the Ronald Acuna Grand Slam. So I'm going to pass that one. I'm going to ignore that. I think it's the 2020 playoffs. Like, you go back, you watch his starts. He was so dominant, just pumping 98, 99, 100 by guys. 2020 playoff Walker Buehler and like 2018, 2019, it was special. Like, that dude just absolutely shoved. That would be mine probably.
When I think about it, Bueller in 2019, the Dodgers didn't go far, but in both of his starts, pitched amazing. Game 1 gets the win. Game 5 should have gotten the win if Dave Roberts knew how to manage back then. Obviously, he's grown as a manager now, but obviously bad decisions were made in that game, and the Dodgers went home early. But I look at 2018. That's the season where I'm watching. Just got out of high school. I don't got much going on. I can watch the Dodgers all summer long. And, seeing Bueller get called up, as part of that combined no hitter, that was awesome. Seeing him pitch game, 163, that was amazing. And then I remember the infamous Acuna Grand Slam was not a fun night. Dodgers almost came back in that game. So it's kind of like an afterthought at that point. And then they ended up winning the series the very next day. Just my favorite start in particular was that 2018 World Series. I believe game 3 start. Dodgers, they end up winning in extras in like the 22nd inning or whatever. It was like almost 4 a.m. my time here on the East Coast. So it was a long game that is remembered because of the Max Muncy walk-off home run. At that point, it was the first walk-off home run since the Gibson home run in the World Series of '88. But Bueller was the one that started that game, gave him, I believe, 6 or 7 very strong innings against, the Red Sox team that we played that year was probably one of the best teams I've ever seen with my eyes, playing from the entire regular season, dominating the American League postseason, and then coming in and pretty much dominating the Dodgers. The only one that they couldn't get, their hands on was Bueller, a scrawny little skinny kid, make in his rookie season, making his first World Series start. And I knew he was a big game pitcher just because I mentioned Vanderbilt. He put the organization on his back, pitched with a bad elbow. Then Dodgers took a chance on him in the draft, and they reaped the rewards. Like I said, 2 World Series wins. I mean, there's not much else you can say about your Dodgers career other than that. If you can get 2 championships, 1 parade, you know, I feel like you're okay in my book, and you'll always be remembered in the Dodger lore.
Yeah, that World Series game was special. I kind of don't remember anything from it because of all the hours of sleep I lost that night. Um, I do remember Nate Eovaldi going like 6 out of the bullpen and just absolutely shoving. But yeah, Bueller, 7 innings, no earned, 7 punchies, 108 pitches, just an absolute dog. You'll always remember him. His legacy is going to be largely because of the playoffs. And he's talked about it. That's what you want. You want to show up in the big moments. And even with how his 2024 season went, you always trusted him in the playoffs. And I think that's a really special attribute for a player to have.
Yeah, so we wish him the best of luck. I'm sure he's going to thrive in Boston, especially pitching against the Yankees again. But from one right-handed pitcher to another, potentially Bueller's replacement here, and that is Roki Sasaki. Obviously, it's a name that everybody's familiar with right now. If you haven't been familiarized with Roki Sasaki over the past year and a half. Get familiarized now because the sweepstakes for him are going to start accelerating here, especially once the new year starts. Obviously, the 23-year-old Japanese right-hander, he's met with a plethora of teams. I believe before yesterday's report from Bill Plunkett of the Orange County Register, he met with 5 confirmed teams, and that was the New York Mets, New York Yankees, Texas Rangers, San Francisco Giants, Chicago Cubs. However, now he has officially met with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Clearly, after Freeman said it was going to be a major priority, everybody had, the worst kept secret, I would say, in baseball is that the Dodgers are showing interest in Sasaki. I know where you stand on it. I know where a lot of other Dodger fans stand on it. They want the guy. They want to bring him in because you're pretty much getting him for nothing. You're using your international pool money to bring this guy in. Um, are you surprised with any of the teams that were listed that have already met with him?
Not really. I did find it funny. I believe it was the Red Sox who said that they hadn't had a meeting and they weren't sure if they were going to get a meeting, which that kind of surprised me a little bit. You'd imagine the Padres are going to get a meeting. I mean, they will get a meeting. But no, I think all of those teams, like there are good reasons for them to be able to meet with Sasaki, and I think every team's making their best pitch in these meetings possible. This may come back and be crazy in 10 years, but I'm going to say right here that 10 years from now, the Sasaki signing this offseason is going to be thought of more positively than the Juan Soto signing. I want to put that on record. I believe that. I think the value of Sasaki is going to be amazing with his arm talent and the 3 years of team control. We've talked about all this. He's a great pitcher. You get him for cheap. It's a great opportunity for any franchise. So I think the Dodgers are the favorites, but every team is going to do what they can to get him. And I wouldn't even be surprised if a couple more teams get meetings because he has till January like 23rd or something like that.
Yep.
Um, and he will sign in between January 15th and January 23rd. So um, that's going to be unique too because you don't often get like a definitive window for when a player is definitely going to sign. So I'm excited to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I mean, it's unique because unlike other guys that have been posted is that they're not using the international pool money. The whole thing of reason why he's going to wait until the 15th at least is so he can maximize any type of value that the Dodgers or the Padres or the Giants, like the Giants and the Dodgers are two like last teams with
Yeah.
in terms of international pool money. The Dodgers and the Giants are each going to have like 5 million or a little bit over $5 million compared to some teams having, 6, 7, $9 million to spend on him. Clearly, Sasaki getting posted this early, being classified as an amateur free agent or international free agent, he can only sign the minor league deal to where he has to go through the whole, pre-arb and, arbitration process. So whatever team gets him now, they're going to get him for cheap. They're going to get him for 6 controllable years. I know there's been concerns about, his diminished velocity this past season. The innings pitched really haven't been there since, his 2023 or 2022 season. Hasn't really been able to match the 122 career high innings in the MPB. I know Mike Salas, who writes for the page, Doom Sal on social media, he's shown his concerns with the elbow, where he really thinks a lot of other people also around the industry think, this guy's kind of a ticking time bomb where he may give you 1, 2 solid years and then that elbow is just going to snap and then they're going to have to go through the whole Tommy John process. It remains to be seen what his health is. I feel like the Dodgers probably have a good sense of where he stands, mentally, physically, and all that because they've been scouting him for so long now, a couple years. And I think the best place for him to succeed, and not trying to be biased, we already mentioned the Dodgers pitching depth. We've already mentioned, the players that they have, the star talent that they have around on the roster. I think he would fold right in here. But there are going to be teams around the league. The Padres are the other one. But like you said, Jacob, everybody can afford this guy. Everybody's going to be in on this guy. There are going to be some teams, like you mentioned. I believe it was actually the Phillies that were given the cold shoulder from the Sasaki sweepstakes.
Oh,
offer. They wanted to meet with them. They met with Yamamoto and even offered more money to Yamamoto than the Dodgers did, and that is the Phillies. And Sasaki told the Phillies no, he doesn't want to meet with them. So
You're
it'll
right.
be interesting to see how many East Coast teams realistically have a shot. Most Japanese players in terms of history that I've seen and like been alive for to watch their free agency play out. It's either they're signing with a West Coast team or it's one of the New York teams, maybe Boston. Other than that, no, they're not going to go on the East Coast. So, but because of we don't really know what he wants. It's not about the money for him. It's not about the fame or the glory. It seems like he just wants to enter the league, get in now, and start competing with the best talent in the world. But I imagine the Dodgers are going to try everything in their power to get this guy. And I think he would blend in really well with this organization right now. So, any other closing thoughts on Sasaki before we move on? Because at the end of the day, we're going to hear more and more teams meeting with him, but the real stuff and the real sweepstakes aren't going to take place until the 15th of January.
Yeah, I mean, all I would say is as far as injury concerns, I mean, even if he does get hurt, he's making the same amount of money as John Rooney is at AAA right now. So he's still worth it. Obviously, I think that goes without saying, but you're not paying him 25-30 million dollars. He's gonna be he's going to be a good pitcher. I would bet a lot of money on that. I'm very high on Sasaki. So I do really hope he's a Dodger, as do most of us.
Yeah, so we'll see what Sasaki decides. We'll definitely hear more reports, more rumors. Maybe we'll see some of these details in the meetings coming out in the next couple days. Like I said, over the next couple days, weeks, hours, we're going to start seeing more and more info about the Sasaki sweepstakes because once we get to January, he really only has 23 days from that point on to sign with the team. So it's going to be interesting that there's a deadline set for a free agent of his caliber. It's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be good for baseball. It's going to be good for the Dodgers and the Padres rivalry, which is what I think is going to be the two final teams. But we've seen crazier things happen in the league, but it remains to be seen what Sasaki decides. So we will cover that here. I'm sure everybody else in this Sasaki sweepstakes will cover it as well. But last topic before we end the show right now. Obviously, it's the time of year, new year. We're entering the 2025 year. Resolutions, New Year resolutions. Everybody has those. Interested to play a little kind of, game here with you. 2024, obviously the Dodgers ended up, the World Series champions. They win, over the New York Yankees. Everything that could go right did go right for them. However, their uphill battle to get to that point, obviously, if you're a hardcore Dodgers fan, you know the adversity that they went through with the injuries, the inconsistencies, the storylines from Otani all the way in Korea, the first couple of months. Obviously, the Dodgers went through a lot. But Jacob, if you had to put one New Year's resolution for the Los Angeles Dodgers that they could do better in 25 than they did in 24, what would it be?
Well, I'm leaving energy drinks behind. The Dodgers need to leave pitching injuries behind. I know it's not that easy, but please, we can't have another 2024. It just can't happen. I think there is an organizational approach to fix that. Um, it's hard to find things with the 2024 Dodgers that you can really improve on. Um, I mean, they did all in all, it was a great year. I would also leave behind giving veterans a lot of leniency at times. Sometimes you can see some preference with some of the older guys. I'm not gonna get into specific examples, but yeah, the main thing let's leave pitching injuries behind. Let's have a healthy and prosperous 2025.
I 100% wholeheartedly agree with that. Pitching injuries suck. Injuries in general suck. It's kind of what made this past season kind of just so interesting. On the other side of that coin, where it's like, all right, who's starting for the Dodgers today? What bullpen game are we rolling out? Who's getting the innings? Pretty much every game, it was a different, story. You didn't have the same pitcher, getting the start. My whole thing for the Dodgers, and this is something that I preached at the beginning of last year, and I'm going to do the same thing this year. I'm interested to see how they go about it, but My whole gist, and I'm writing an article about this on DodgersBeat.com as well, where it's kind of the New Year's resolutions idea that we're talking about right now. My top one that I'll give some, insight on is I want them to make starting pitching great again. I want them to prioritize that in any way that they can. Six-man rotation, I think, helps right off the bat. The addition of Blake Snell, Tyler Glass now being able to avoid surgery, Otani coming back, got a lot of top-heavy talent in this starting rotation. I think they can get back to those pre-2023 heights because it hasn't really been the best for the Dodgers in the starting rotation, statistically wise. Obviously they've gotten the job done enough to have them still win the division, go on, some deep October runs, win the World Series this past year. But if you look at their ranks this past season in terms of the National League, they were 12th in innings pitched, 10th in ERA, 11th in FIP, ninth in WHIP, all kind of bottom third of the National League in starting pitching. And pitching overall, they were still one of the better teams, but because of their starting pitching kind of pulling them down a little bit, it could be better. It could always be better. They did have a really high K percentage, fourth in the National League. They didn't walk many batters either. That seems to be the Dodgers' way. They like strikeouts. They don't like walks. So they ranked fourth and fifth, respectively, in those categories. The other jarring thing is that, the team that has the most Cy Young Award wins, the Dodgers, they haven't had a top Cy Young finish since 2022, and the guy that finished in there is the one that we want to basically classify as Voldemort now, and that's Julio Urias. He finished third that year. In 2021, they had three guys. Obviously, Bueller, that's when he finished top five. Max Scherzer, who finished in there as well, and also Julio finished again top 10 Cy Young voting. I want the Dodgers to have somebody at least in the Cy Young conversation. I'm hoping that can be Blake Snell. Hopefully we get that 180 innings pitch Blake Snell, where it seems like once he hits that number, probably just might as well just give him the Cy Young award right off the bat. But I want them to make starting pitching better because when I watch baseball, I grew up in the golden era of like pitching with the Dodgers. I grew up watching Zach Greinke and Kershaw start every fifth or sixth day. 2015 was a like peak year with them going back and forth. A lot of people can find pitching boring. I don't, and I want the Dodgers to bring that back. I want good starting pitching this upcoming season.
Yeah, I'm with you. My ex bio says pitching enthusiasts. That's like my favorite part about baseball. I love watching pitching. I can go back and watch guys throw 99 by guys with a nasty slider all day. Yours is a little more attainable than mine. I'm a bit of a wishful thinker, but they kind of go together. If mine comes true, yours comes true. So hopefully we can both be great, and the Dodgers can be great.
Yeah, I mean they could use 15 starting pitchers as long as they're all doing the job right. Then every starting pitching category I mentioned that should go up. But yeah, if Glass now can give you a good healthy season, hit over the 140 inning mark, Blake Snell gives you what you paid him to do. Kershaw comes back. They got a lot of starting pitchers in this rotation right now that can help you out, and the load management is going to go a long way. And that's what's like. All right, that's where I'm interested in to see what their plan of attack is, especially with Otani, where I think Otani's itching to get back on the mound. I think he's itching to be back to that two-way player status. I know I am, and there is one award that he has left to conquer, and that is the Cy Young Award. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe this season he pitches his best. Last year we needed the hitting Otani. This year we need the pitching Otani. So let's get the best of both worlds this upcoming year. But yeah, I think that's the first part of a baseball game where it's like if you have really good starting pitching, that used to be the Dodgers' way. Pitching first, hitting second. It's kind of reversed recently. They've been one of the best offenses in baseball pretty much for the past 3 or 4 years. Pitching, they've been out hitting their teams, very similar to the Rangers in 23. In 24, the Dodgers won the World Series because they just out hit you.
Yeah, I was absolutely wrong when I said looking back on 2024, there's not much to change. The starting pitching at times was abysmal. You go back and you look at who started games for us in July, you'll see some names that you forgot were even on the Dodgers. So yeah, I absolutely agree. I would love some consistency in the rotation. That's a big word that will go a long way if you have Glasnow, Snell, Otani, Yamamoto making the majority of your starts. That's insane. And I guarantee if those guys make quite a few starts, one of them will end up in a Cy Young conversation. I do want to ask you, out of those four, who would be your bet to be in the Cy Young conversation if you had to pick one of them?
Well, Otani was in the Cy Young race the year before he got injured. So in 23, he finished like I think top 3 or top 4. I think the Dodgers are going to slow play him. I think he wants to come back in April. I mean, there's reports out there that he says he wants to pitch during that international series in Japan. I don't think that happens. I don't think the Dodgers want that to happen. He could possibly come back in May if they really want to push it back, maybe June. It's really up to Otani and the Dodgers. So I think he won't finish top 5 or top 10 just because of the innings pitched and stuff like that. I think Glass now when he's on, he's like the best pitcher on the team still, but I think Yamamoto really puts it together next year, and I think if as long as his shoulder isn't barking, which he didn't have any signs of that in October, he still had was hitting high velocity numbers, pitch count looked fine, all of his off speed stuff, and that splitter was really working. If you take away that first start in San Diego against San Diego and Korea, he had an ERA under 2 the rest of the season. If he can do that for a full season clip with the strikeout numbers he gets, weak contact that he gets, I mean, he won like what 3 or 4 versions of the Cy Young in Japan. I definitely think he would probably finish top 3 or top 4 if you can get a full 180 innings pitched with him, maybe 190. Um, I think that's sky's the limit for him. And he's so young too. I feel like we haven't really gotten to see him because he only pitched like 80 innings this past year because of the shoulder injury.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely my bet too, and I think you can bet on him being healthier. You, he did have to get used to pitching in the United States and the different workloads and all that. Like the Dodgers tried to kind of do the every 6 days, and they did, but there is like preparations completely different. All that I think you can bet on him being really really good next year.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for Yamamoto to improve, Otani to improve, because that's the other thing. The other layer to all of this is that the Angels with Otani, they only pitched him once a week. The Dodgers are going to have to do the same thing there, and with him only being able to pitch once a week, that's why they're going to the 6-man rotation. And now you have 2 Japanese starters, possibly 3 Japanese starters will be in your starting rotation if you add Sasaki. They are on a rhythm. They are on a plan. They are on what I think is the future of baseball, and that is, more pitchers to alleviate the innings usage. So 6-man rotation is the future of baseball, and the Dodgers, we're going to see that in full force this next season. I think it's going to benefit everybody as long as they're on board. Blake Snell, Tyler Glass now, and then the 2 Japanese pitchers in Otani and Yamamoto. I think everybody's going to benefit severely with all of this, but looking ahead, we got a lot of stuff to talk about for the rest of the offseason. There's still players to be signed, still players to be traded. The Dodgers, I don't think they're done. They're still going to piss off the rest of Major League Baseball. Definitely good to get back here and start talking about all the recent moves. Sucks to lose Bueller. Awesome to have Teoscar Hernandez back. But any other closing thoughts before we get out of here, Jake?
No, not really. I think we kind of covered everything. I hope everyone has a happy new year, and I can't wait to get back on and talk more baseball.
Yeah, so that'll do it for this episode of the Bleed Los podcast. I am Cody, that's Jacob, and this episode was brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. Have a good one, guys.